Literacy Program. This is another yet informative session that we are having with our partners. My name is Lorato Khomolemo, and I am here to help you count your rands and cents. I am joined by our partners. Let me start with the MEC. I am joined by our partners, but we are led by a woman. I am happy. MEC, how are you?
I'm good. How are you, Lorato?
I am okay. MEC Khadija Brown is the MEC for Provincial Treasury in the Free State. Benny, let's take it from you.
Right. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Benny Mvala, and I'm from Standard Bank.
Thank you so much, Benny. Winnie?
My name is Winnie Kamulani. I am from WinPro Financial Services.
In the Free State? Operating in the Free State?
Operating in the Free State.
There we go.
Yeah, and I am Albert Morera. I work for ABSA Insurance and Financial Advisors, and I'm the Regional Manager for Free State, Northern Cape and Northwest Provinces.
Fantastic. I am happy that we have such an informative and good panel that is going to speak to us about the different aspects of savings.
Good day, everybody. My name is Benny Mvala, and I'm from Standard Bank, and I'm so excited that we are part of this awesome program that the MEC Treasury is running in the province. Today we were talking about savings, and I must say it is very important that in our families, as individuals, as families, as communities, that we start building a savings culture, because remember, whatever that you're not going to save for, you're going to have to find an alternative way to finance it. So let's start building that savings culture. Let's start saving if you're going on vacation. Start saving for when you need to go fix that pothole damage on your car. For whatever the reason is, let's have a goal and build a savings culture that our children can have something that they can work on. Thank you.
Good day, my name is Sahamiti Tai. I'm the accounts manager from Vodacom, looking after public sector. And you might wonder why Vodacom. People know us as just a cell phone and a SIM card, data and airtime, but we are actually more than that. So as Vodacom, we've positioned ourselves very well. We've moved from the normal mainstream that people have known us, and we're calling ourselves as telco. And then within that, we have financial services as Vodacom that we can actually provide to our citizens here in Free State. So we commit ourselves, to the Department of Provincial Treasury here in Free State to bring up those solutions that we can teach our citizens across the Free State province. So thank you.
Saturday mornings with the Provincial Treasury mean the Financial Literacy Program. My name is Lorato Khomolemo, and I continue to count the rands and cents of this province with you. Together with partners, we're sitting here today bringing you the financial literacy because the provincial government has committed to ensuring that the citizens of this province know better, spend better, learn more, and grow more. Today, I'm sitting with partners as we continue to learn. MEC, how are you?
Well, thank you. How are you, Lorato?
I'm fine. We're back here again.
Wonderful.
It's beautiful also that you continue to join us.
Of course. I'm passionate about this program. You're not going to find me missing.
We're appreciating your presence here with us. Today, we are diving into the subject of saving. The Business Tech Survey says South Africans say that they save only 15% of their salaries. And out of that survey that was conducted, only 35%, or at least 35% of South Africans say they do not save. Now, MEC, I'd like us to start with you and speak a little about this province that we are in right now, where we currently find ourselves with an unemployment rate that is quite high, but we want to promote saving for our people. Let's talk a little bit about that.
No, thank you very, very much. And I'm happy that you brought some statistics into play, because with an economy that's not growing, savings largely forms part of that analysis, or it forms part of the formula, and I'll explain why. So we're looking at a South African savings environment as a whole. Our studies through Stats SA and various research houses have done some work, and we're finding that the latest data on South Africa's gross domestic savings as a percentage of GDP. So savings percent of GDP fell to 13% in comparison to 18.7% in 2020. So in 2022, only 13% of South Africans, in terms of the percentage of GDP to gross domestic savings, is saving, and 18.7 was in 2022, and that is relevant to the current economic conditions, to the current economic challenges, to interest rates that have now gone up. And you find that people are tapping into their reserves to help with this repayments that they have to make to loans and other commitments that they have. But what concerns us, and why a poor province, if you could call it that way, or a province where we have high levels of poverty and unemployment, comes into effect in this way. Firstly, if we compare ourselves to other countries, South Africa's savings rate is low and insufficient for a specific aspect, and that is a buffer for either for our total reserves as a country, or to drive economic growth. So savings plays a big part of creating reserves in our country, especially when we look at our financial markets, and especially in the aspect of leveraging towards either borrowings or either ensuring that we create appreciation value in our assets to do other type of borrowings, which helps for simulation of economic growth. So those are some of the statistics. But what is wonderful on the opposite end, and this is what happens with finance and economics, is that it is stated that households prefer to save funds in stokvels rather than banks. So on the one end, while we're looking at our gross domestic savings being low, that is the value that we're seeing that's recorded in our financial services industries. But you're not seeing what's happening, you know, when we are saving at home, either in the flower pots or in the sugar pot. I remember my aunties and uncles used to put it in the sugar pot. So in terms of stokvels, we're finding that the high liquidity rate and easy access to pool funds for emergency purposes and short-term loans and affordability requirements within a rural household is dealt through stokvels. And if I can give you just some stats on stokvels. Yes. It is reported, and we're looking at Old Mutual Tracker. Old Mutual has done some good research over the past decades on stokvel industry. In 2023, they're recording that the stokvel industry is worth 45 billion rands in South Africa. 45 billion rands. And more than 800,000 stokvel groups in our country. 800,000 stokvel groups in our country. And further to that, amongst the ages of 18 to 29 years old, we're seeing that these are the young people, 68% of them save in stokvels between the ages of 18 to 29. And then our older generation, those who are facing retirement, 28% of them are saving in stokvels. But this is also interesting. Predominant among our black households, rural households, 2 out of 5 households are belonging to stokvel groups. More than 61% are members of at least 2 stokvel clubs. So there is access to savings, but it's not in a formalized way other than the stokvel clubs. And households with contribution to these clubs have increased from 2017 They were 28% in 2017. They are now 61% in 2022. Wow. So stokvel business has grown tremendously over the past 6 years. So, and we're looking at average monthly contributions of 856 Rand, which used to be in 2008 on average what people would save in stokvels, to 1,214 Rand in 2022. So you can find that on various sources. You can look at the Old Mutual source, you can look at the Stats SA source, you can look at the FA News article sources and other sources, which is very interesting. And hence, as South Africans, and when we're looking at research and information to make informed decisions about policy, planning, investing, savings, we cannot forget the local economies. We cannot forget our rural, and we cannot forget our communities. And we should start bringing in research-based information that's aligned to our rural environments, and that's when we can start making proper informed decisions. So savings, there's a lot of opportunities to formalize this, to make sure that we are doing what's right for our people. And I'm happy we're starting with that before income, because savings is a mechanism to start businesses, to start economically viable driven aspects, to purchase assets. Savings is a leverage towards future growth and of course empowerment. So we need to be able to support our young people, those 60% in our rural economies, to help them make informed decisions and help them decide what it is that they want to do with their savings, so that they invest wisely and they have sustainable income and savings going forward.
I think I want to make a follow-up, MEC, especially with the stats that we've just discussed on stokvels in particular. Do you think it's a historical thing that our people would opt for that mechanism in terms of saving? Because my great-grandmother had a stokvel that she belonged to, and perhaps it was different then because the focus would probably have been a funeral mechanism. In case there is a family funeral, there must be some money or some saving in order for us to do that. But I'm thinking aloud now that it should be a historical thing for our people to find comfort in that form of saving.
I'm going to be very controversial.
Okay.
And I've got partners here that might not like to hear what I'm going to say, but I'm going to say it.
Let's do that.
This is my opinion. It's not researched.
Yes.
Because the question you asked right now, there's no research that I've conducted to be able to give you an informed answer in that regard. But my opinion, being in the banking environment and being in government and being close to the people and our communities, is that I don't think our financial services sector is close enough to our rural environment. Firstly. Secondly, I don't think our financial services sector really understands the plight of a rural environment. And often those of us who are earning sufficiently, we don't know that there is scope out of a SASSA 350 Rand that people make space to save something from that. There is scope. One would think, how do you live off 350 Rand? But our people know how to live off 350 Rand and save, and do this through stokvels or other ways. And you find it very surprising, but the other part is that we find quick solutions. We're looking at a macro plan to deal with solutions or products or values that targets either quantities and volumes instead of really understanding individual needs. And because society has changed in the manner in which we're looking at social media, how information comes across, how rapidly our population sizes and growth, and how quickly and diversely things change in the market. So there's not enough time for institutions to go and have that research and churn as fast as we'd like it to churn. So yes, traditionally, I would say that it was traditional forms, it's cultural, it's traditional, it's how you were brought up, and we hold on to what we know and the less risk. So we hold on to that, and I think our communities are still holding vastly on to what it is that we know. But also, a savings account has got fees on it.
Yes.
And they may not want interest income. They just want their capital back. And that's what a stokvel provides, is an amount every month, and I will have my capital back.
The safety net.
Yes, the safety net. So now I don't understand, is my interest earned going to cover my fees for that account? And how quickly can I access it? And who do I have to speak to? And how long does it take to redeem my investment? And those are the things that we are here for today, is to say that it's not all bad to put it in an institution. If you know exactly the term, the benefits, the negative parts of it, and how to access that as quickly as you would in a stokvel situation or scenario. So that's the type of education we want to bring to our communities, and also balance that scale. And largely, I believe, as I close, the financial institutions have woken up to the value that is sitting in our rural economies.
Yes.
Through stokvels and other type of, the cash loans. I want us to have a conversation about cash loans eventually, because that is something that is also giving our people a very, very difficult time. But what we've got to understand is that as the financial institutions want to bring in solutions towards this market of 45 billion rand, understand that it's not going to be a historic financial sector structure or system where you could use 45 billion and leverage that off bonds and other mechanisms through asset and wealth management. No, this is redemption as and when is required. You're going to have to make that funds loose. You cannot, place any guarantees against that. So we've got to look at solutions that's going to benefit the user, the person who is actually investing that funds, in a similar process and mechanism towards the stokvel. And that's the caution I'd like to give to the financial industry. Do not, you may want to enter this environment, but do not change how the policy works. And that is a township matchbox policy that you will not be able to change. Thank you.
Sometimes I forget that you are a finance person until you start speaking the nitty-gritties of it all.
Oh, yeah.
Albert,
thank you.
Yes.
how are you?
Good, and you? Good,
Thank you
good,
so much for
good.
joining us today.
Thank you.
Let's speak to saving.
Yes.
What is saving?
I think what I liked, what the MEC already touched on, is that to a certain extent, the idea of saving that we might have is putting that money somewhere away in a jar or under the mattress, and that is saving to a certain extent. But saving essentially is taking your income, you take your expenditure off, and you're left with something. And you go and you place that, you put that somewhere, and then we say you're saving. And that could very well be a stokvel. And as I said, you can put it under the mattress. If you do that, however, it might not necessarily be the safest thing to do. But I can tell you up front that it's also not going to grow, right? In fact, inflation might actually erode the purchasing power of your money if you do that. And that's not ideal. That's not ideal, and I think the panel would agree with that. What you have as alternatives to putting that money in under the mattress is purchasing a financial product. Now, today there are so many different financial products, investment products, savings and investment products, that it becomes very difficult to actually, for a lay person, to understand what to invest in and where should I actually be putting my money. And that's not such an easy question to answer. What I would recommend to people is that they actually seek the help of a financial services professional, like a financial advisor, to assist them and actually help them to make those decisions, because they're decisions that can be quite complex. They can be very simple, but there are a lot of things that we need to consider. You've mentioned, MEC, things like costs, for example, things like risks that are involved that you need to consider, liquidity constraints, or potential liquidity constraints, potential tax implications. So there's a whole number of things that you actually need to consider before you actually go and start saving in a particular product. But fortunately, there's help. There's help available. The financial services industry is a very mature industry in South Africa. I think we probably rank amongst the top globally in terms of our capabilities and efficiencies and the array of products that we have. So I'd say, to maybe summarize, saving for me is that difference between your income and expenditure that you would then take and save either in a like a stokvel, or you would save in some or other financial product. That's savings.
Cool. Win,
Hey,
welcome back.
yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Now, let's talk about who saves.
Yeah.
And at what age, does one start saving? Some of us started saving really bagolo, So when do I start saving, and who saves?
Thank you, Lorato. I think anyone who earns an income or has an ability to earn an income, whether it be through business or through your salary, you are enabled to start saving. And I think that it's good that MEC, you brought these numbers, because that it tells us that we need to go back to the nitty-gritty as parents. Let's go down to primary school level. Let's start there. That's now dealing with the age.
Right.
Because as you give your children your TAC money, try and negotiate with them to say, look, if you save this up until the end of the week and you have whatever X amount, I'll match that. And that is encouraging them for growth, that savings has rewards.
Right.
So I would say that anyone who has an income in South Africa, whether it be through their business or through their salary at work, or even children at primary school level, remember those piggy banks? Maybe it's time that we implement that in our schools and have this class competitions and see who can save more, or some sort of an entrepreneurship program that we can introduce in our schools to try and solicit kids to start thinking about savings as a mechanism for them to build wealth.
That piggy bank competition might just be what we need to do as the Free State. And MEC, I know I'm tying what Winnie just said with the competition that you have that is tied to your budget vote, that is done, I think, by high schools across the province, where they speak about finances, which is a very critical thing. So maybe there's a new idea that we can couple with what we're doing with schools. But Benny, let me bring you in.
Yes.
Are you well?
I'm good.
Fantastic.
Thank
Let's talk about the different banking mechanisms. I know MEC brought in the stokvels already.
Yes.
But for a person who says, I don't have a bank account,
Right.
what do I do? Let's speak to the different, how do I bank, where do I save rather, or how do I save?
Okay.
Let's talk to that.
Okay. Thank you very much. Good afternoon again, MEC. Thank you very much. Right. So look, MEC touched on the stokvel part.
Yes.
And my colleague there, he spoke around, you mentioned the mattress. All right. Now, over and above the mattress and the piggy banks, what other options are there?
Yes.
Look, there's short-term savings that you can use, medium-term, and more longer-term.
Right.
All right. And I'll explain each one. The short-term one, this is mostly where you're putting away money and you for a rainy day, meaning that you might need immediate access to those funds. Okay. Maybe you've hit a pothole and you need some money quickly, or maybe you're short of money urgently and you come from the doctor and now you need to pay a levy on the,
Right.
whatever it could be, just where you can have immediate access for that. Then the next one is more your medium where now we're speaking, you need to put in a notice before you can access those funds.
Right.
All right, and then you've got the long-term one, which is, say, your 3 years longer, where it's fixed for a particular period. And obviously, the more fixed, generally, the more fixed the account, the better the interest rate that you earn on it. But I think what I want to say that's very important is this. Regardless of which mechanism that you're going to use, what is critical is you need to have a goal in mind. What are you saving for?
Right.
Are you saving for that matric farewell? Are you saving for that weave that you want?
Yeah.
You know, are you saving to go on vacation?
Yes.
You know, because what you're not going to save for, you're going to have to find other ways to finance it. So if you're planning to go on holiday, how are you going to finance it?
Right.
Are you going to use a credit card and then come back and sit in debt, and then you now need to manage that debt? Or are you going to partially save some of that? So I think that the big thing, you know, have a goal so that you can stay motivated.
Yeah.
And what I like around the Stokvel MEC is that when you're in a Stokvel, you know exactly what you're saving for.
Right.
Be it grocery, be it, you know exactly
Yeah.
what the
you're
goal is going to be. So if you're using other savings mechanism, put a goal for yourself. You know, my wife introduced me to holidays. You know, to me, growing up, holidays was visiting family in Vomaranstad or visiting that uncle, you know, and then I was introduced to vacation.
Right.
All right, but the important thing for me was to say, okay, how are we going to pay for the fuel going there?
Right.
Are we going to use a credit card? When can we start saving for that? All right, so it's very important, have a goal, and then once you've chosen your goal, then you will look at which mechanism can I use. Am I going to use a short term, medium term, long term? But the key thing, have a goal so that you can stay committed.
Fantastic. I want us to run to a break quickly, Benny, but you've touched on a very important subject that I want us to go
Right.
into when we come back, of saving as a family. Because, you know, when I save for the weave, well, I don't have hair, but when I save for the weave, I'm
Yes.
saving for myself.
Yes.
But what are the aspects of
Yes.
saving as a family? Let's go to a break. Shortly, when we come back, we're going to talk about saving as a family.
Amen.
Hi everyone, I am Melissa Romain from the Standard Bank Group. I am incredibly excited and I feel very privileged to be part of this program. We are here to help you to stand in front of your money and show it who's boss. We are here to partner with you so that you can take money and own it, and for money not to be your boss. So we're excited for all the programs that are coming, and we're hoping that you will not only tune in by yourself, but that you will bring your entire family, bring your friends, turn it into a block party, and let's show money who's boss.
My name is Mahlomela Mashweng, working for Old Mutual as a learning leader. I am giving my commitment that we will support this financial literacy in partnership with Free State Province under the Department of Treasury. We will make sure that we bring everything that we have to ensure that people of this province, they benefit from this program. We have a program that talks to youth that are not in education, youth that are at universities, TVET colleges. We also have a program for people, community members who are working and not working, and people who are working, even those who just started at work. We have a program that will make sure that they make informed financial decisions when it comes to spending their money. I am committing myself to this program wholeheartedly. Thank you very much.
Welcome back to the Financial Literacy Program. I am joined here by our stakeholders who, over every week from here on, they will come and speak to us about different aspects of finances, expenditure, budgeting, you name it. Today, we are diving and talking about the savings. We want our people to learn and know and understand what saving is all about. Now, before we took a break, Benny was just talking about his wife and how she has come up with that plan on the holidays.
Yes,
Or they say we call them holidays, Benny, and it's vacations, sorry.
Oh, yes.
Yes,
please. Yes.
On vacations. Now, Albert, I want us to talk a little
Yes.
bit about saving as a family.
Okay.
Because I can save as an individual, but what are the fundamentals of saving as a family?
Well, I would say savings is part of investment planning, essentially, from a personal financial planning perspective. And it's a process, so the fundamentals of the process is similar. What is different, though, is the goals that might be different for an individual and goals that might be different for the family. However, I think what you should do as a family is to start by having a basic financial plan. You can't save if the budget, doesn't cover all the expenses. So you need to start off with a basic financial plan, including something like a budget, so that you can get to a point where there is some reserves that you can actually start to save. Now, what you save for, as Benny as alluded to earlier, that might differ. So, for example, for parents, the saving need might be to save for my children's education, as an example, which is a more longer term need. Now, depending on the age of the children, it would impact the amount of risk that you're willing to take and the type of risk and return trade-off that you would be willing to make. If that need, however, is for a school trip for one of the children at the end of the year, it's a more shorter-term need, and you'd have to go and look for an appropriate vehicle suitable for that particular need. Now, to put things in a bit of perspective in terms of that risk versus return that you need to consider. So you have what in South Africa we would call very close to zero risk, is when you put your investment in something like an RSA retail bond, for example, because that's as close as you can get to zero risk, or you can put your money in a bank. So in the bank, you've got your on-balance sheet typical type of investments. Those would be a normal savings account that you would use for such a purpose. Typically much more shorter term. The moment the need becomes medium to long term, there's other avenues that you can look at, because that's where you start looking at things like your collective investment schemes. You could, depending on the amount of money that you want to save, and whether you want certain restrictions or not, you could even look at things like endowments. If you're saving towards retirement, you can look at something like retirement annuities. So there's a whole bunch of different things that you can look at, but it will depend on what the need is as the family and what the objective is. And as I've already indicated, they might be different ones. And again, seek the help of a professional to help you decide what is most suitable for that particular need that you might have as a family.
Winnie?
If I may.
You may, Alice.
May,
Come in.
because I think some of our audience might just have a heart attack listening to that and not understanding some of what you have said, Albert. And I think for most middle income earners and high income earners, they would absolutely grasp everything that you said. But I want to bring it down to everybody.
To a simple mother at home.
Yes. So what one has to take out of what you stated is understand the goal.
Yes.
And the goal is different to everybody and every family.
Yes.
So if we're looking at a couple, their goal might be to say, okay, how does my daughter get a license?
Right.
Right. How do I make sure that my daughter is able to access a university or a college? How is it that my daughter needs a matric farewell dress? How is it that my son may need a small second-hand car? And that could be a couple thinking of their kids and then they save as a family.
Right.
Or it could be I need to renovate my home. Or I've got this troubled toilet with the sewerage system in this home, in this area, and I want to have that fixed. What is it that I do and how do I save for that? Or alternatively, I want to extend or buy a new fridge or a microwave, whatever it may be. So simple aspects, but the goal is important. So that is number one, the most important aspect out of what you have stated, right? Now, if you've got a family member that is a municipal worker or a government worker, there is retirement and pension type of savings that is gazetted and prescribed by the employer. So that is some level of savings. But if you are of a certain age where you're now feeling like I want to move away from the township into an urban area, I need to save for a deposit on a home. Or alternatively, I am 55, I'm closer to retirement, I want to save for the day I retire. Or if I'm young and I'm tired of working in this formalized environment, I want to save towards opening a business. Now, once you've understood what it is that you want to save for, go to these people because they are the specialists. Endowments, bonds, annuities, everything else that you heard here today is not going to make sense. What you need to do is understand what it is that you want to save for. And once you've got that idea, these guys will tell you this is a short-term savings environment. This is a medium to long-term, and this is long-term. And that then provides different type of options for you to decide on with positive, negative aspects, the pros and the cons, when you can have access to your money, when you can't, what is taxed, what is not taxed, how are you going to be taxed, and if you're going to be taxed. There's a lot of other things that go with it that we're not going to finish here. But until you know what it is that you want to do with that money that you're putting away, start there. And then thereafter, I would then suggest. So what we'll do, Lerato, is ensure that on the website, we've got names and telephone numbers and contact details of all of our panelists, so that when you are ready to seek for that advice, you've got access to the necessary links to be able to help you with the detail and make you understand all those big words that Mr. Albert used a little earlier. Thank you.
It's okay. And I want to extend that conversation, MEC, the simplicity of it, to say it also extends to the stokvels.
Right.
Because in a stokvel, we may be saving as a team and we're splitting the money. But when I receive my 50,000 at the end of the year, and not necessarily grocery, Benny, you were talking about the groceries earlier. When I receive my 50,000 at the end of the year, where do I take it? Because I may have a long-term goal for it, but how do I grow it? Where do I put it? Who can then help me to make the right decisions about it? So I think that conversation does not only extend to a mother at home or an individual.
Or a family.
Or a family.
But also the stokvel.
Correct.
Absolutely. Right.
I think I like the simplicity. Albert is a technical person. Then there's you, who's the mom, who remembers that it must be done the simpler way.
I was a banker, I'm a politician. So this is the politician in me. 10 years ago, I would have been exactly that.
Winnie, talking about saving as a family, let's speak about who must know that we are saving. In a family. I think information is very important. So let's speak about who must know that as a family there is intention to save.
I think ideally in a common South African family, it's a two, parent household where the father and the mother is there, or a single parent, or maybe a mother, single parent with some supporting structure around.
Right.
So if you're talking about savings and you're talking about the family savings, obviously there are those aspects where you have to get to a point where you discuss this thing that, you know, I have this investment somewhere, I have this savings account somewhere. So in the event that something happens to me, this is where you can go,
Right.
in terms of, you know, accessing those documents, because not everybody in the household would know. But I think it is the responsibility of the person who is owning the investment or the savings to discuss with that person that they trust in the family, to say, no, I have this document sitting somewhere. I mean, nowadays it's nice because we have this digital world where we've got OneDrive, cloud storage, and we've got your Google Drive as well. And I know that OneDrive also has what you call that personal vault, where
Right.
you can actually create your personal file and store documents such as your password to your banking app, your password to your investment portfolio, and your funeral plan. So this
Right.
question actually covers everything, not only whose responsibility it is to know that we have any savings in the household, but other documents that are related to this finances of this person. So you can store them in that OneDrive personal vaults, passwords, and information such as the claiming, which numbers to call in events that you can't claim, and then share that password with that person that you trust in the house, that in an event that you can't or you aren't able to, then they can access your documents and then start processing whatever that needs to be claimed. Because if I'm correct, in the banking, in the banks, when somebody is reported deceased, the first thing they do is to freeze the bank account. And it would be ideal to actually try and withdraw some of the money as quick as you can, so that, you know, leading up to the events that are leading up to the funeral. Because I did experience that that situation in the past, where a family member is deceased and the money is in the bank account and they have to do all these other things, and there's 50,000 stuck in the bank account. The bank has frozen the money. So if they had that person who knew all these documents where they are situated, it would have been made life easy. And I know some people who actually store some of their social media credentials in that life file as well, because they prefer that if they're deceased, somebody must go and disable their social media profiles, and so that they don't seem like they're active on social media and deceased in real life. So yeah, it is the responsibility of the person who is having that investment to discuss with the family all the aspects that are leading up to, at the end of it all, when something happens, this is the next thing to do.
Okay, but I need to come in there as well.
Is this the politician or the banker?
The politician. so that may work, but a go-go in Paul Roux is not going to have a cloud drive.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
what I know happens is there's an ID, and then there's a small little black book, and then there is a file with a funeral, a funeral thing that you tick off every month, and it gets placed in a plastic sleeve, and it goes behind
Somewhere
the wardrobe or the microwave. Now, that little black book has got all the answers. So-and-so Muruti, so-and-so's got my this, and that auntie next door.
Owes me this much.
Yes, and this is where it goes. So I would want to suggest that we just need to know where that is stored, where the ID, together with the funeral plan, together with the black book and all the passwords, and, you know, I gave so much to so, and this is the stock file, it's going to be redeemed this date, and this is how much I've invested, and. So if all else fails with your cloud, you go back to the black book.
Yes.
And it's a good system. It's worked, and it still works in the past, right now. And we find that the other aspect that we're missing is child-headed households.
Yes.
Because we also have a grant for children who are looking after a bunch of kids and themselves, and we often don't help them enough or sufficiently to make the right decisions for the rest of the family, and this is where we need to get more involved. And they haven't been taught the Black Book system.
That's true.
They haven't been taught the community-based saving system.
Or a
They-
stokvel.
Right, and those are the individuals that we have to take a little bit more care of in this financial environment. Thank you.
Benny,
Yes.
saving as a married couple. Pros and cons. What I need to, especially in community of property.
Yes. Savings.
Because there's signatures, there's
Yes.
fine print,
Yes.
there's things to pay attention to.
Okay.
In a case where my significant other
Has access.
either has access or does not have access.
Okay.
Let's speak to that.
All right. Can be a bit dangerous, but I'll try and make it as practical as possible. Now, look, I think I'm going to take from where my sister left off. Saving as a couple, saving as a family, I think the ultimate goal, is the legacy that you want to leave behind. You want your children to know that, there's a savings culture that I saw in the house.
Right.
I think I just want to start there. Because some of us, when we were growing up, that was not common. It wasn't common.
Yes.
So how do we bring back that savings culture? And it starts in the family. It starts in the family. I mean, if you speak to people that actually experienced it growing up, they would say, if you ask them, why are you saving? They say, no, I used to always see my mommy or my daddy, saving. And that's why I'm saving. So I just wanted to add that. Now, in terms of access, I think the first thing would be, the question you need to ask is, why would you want to give your spouse access to your savings?
Right.
Just like, what would be the reason, why would you want to give them signing powers? Is it safe to give them signing powers? It could be safe for you, it could not be safe for me.
Right.
Because what's going to happen in the event that, let's say my wife has access, she goes to the bank and she accesses those savings without agreeing with me, but with the bank, she's got access.
Right.
She's got signing powers. You know what's going to happen in that event.
Right.
So
So what you're essentially saying is that a couple is able to have a financial contract, I'm going to call it that for a lack of no better word, where one member has access, or a situation where a member does not have access. So you have both options for saving.
yes.
I think we need to clarify that.
So let me say,
Okay.
I can give signing powers to my wife to
Right.
access my banking. All right. So let's say I've got savings and I'm sitting in hospital and the medical aid is not enough to cover it.
Right.
She doesn't have money, but fortunately, because she's got access, she's got signing powers in my account, she can access some of the savings,
Right.
pay the hospital, and then we sort it.
Fantastic.
I think that's a good example.
Yes.
Right.
Right.
Obviously, I mentioned the bad example is taking access where I didn't give you access, but because you already have access in the
Access.
bank, you are able to access it.
Right.
yeah. But I think once again, let's go back to goals. So if you're saving as a goal, is it clear that, okay, you know what, lovey, darling, sweetie, whatever you prefer to call each other, what is our goal as a couple? All right, what are we saving and how are we going to save? My colleague spoke about, speaking to a professional, and then once you've done that, then you can discuss the thing of having access into my savings.
I
at the
want to
bank.
follow that up with children having, and MEC, you mentioned the children earlier, but I want to follow that up with children having access. My daughter's 15, and I'm not available for whatever reason, and she needs access to my saving. Let's speak a little bit about that as well.
Okay. Yeah, look, unfortunately, you would need to give somebody access in the bank, and 15 is a minor.
Yes.
And if you are not available, one thing that I could think of is if say I'm sitting in hospital.
Right.
All right, but through digital banking, I'll be able to maybe transfer funds to my 15-year-old.
Okay.
All right. Let's say, for example, she's 15 years old, she's got a banking account, for example.
Right.
I can still be able to transfer funds to them, even though I am unavailable physically, let's say in Bloemfontein.
Right.
All right, by means of using digital channels or,
Okay.
or digital banking.
Let's go to
Okay.
I'm becoming the politician.
Yes.
Let's now take it to the rural mother
Yes.
who does not have digital banking. She's not available. The children need access to the funds. What must happen?
Yeah, look, that's a tough one because then the question is who would have been selected to have access into your account? All right, that the 15-year-old can maybe, let's say you've given access to your trusted sister.
Right.
You know, then the 15-year-old as a minor can speak to the auntie, and the auntie having access to your account can sort it out.
I think I'm stressing, I'm stressing the issue of access.
Yes.
Because we have seen in many communities where children are left stranded, and we know that, or we're told there is money, but they do not have access to those funds. You know, there was a savings account somewhere, but they do not have access to those accounts. And I think perhaps what we need to do on our social media platforms, with the help of the partners, is to say, in a case where a child or a minor needs to access savings, these are the documents that you need. We need a senior person over
Right.
18 who can assist for them to access that money. But I think I'm speaking about the issue particularly of access because there have been challenges
Yes.
concerning children particularly accessing funds that were left off for them. In any situation, a mother could be in hospital, parents could be deceased, but we need to speak clearly on the issues of access, and that's why I'm saying perhaps we need to use our social media platforms to say, in a case, because I'm sure we will have those kind of questions from the social, media platforms.
I'd like to. Sorry,
Come in,
Lerato.
come in.
This is why we are here.
Yes.
And it's a culture that we have to, if not create, but re-institutionalize amongst
Yes.
our communities. And our communities do not necessarily understand the two parts to that question that you raised with
Yes.
Benny. There's two parts. Is my spouse and my children.
Correct.
And I want us to be real. I'm going to start off, let me start off with the children aspect because it's easier.
That's fine.
So we don't, as a family, have a trusted conversation with our family or with the broader family.
Right.
As Africans, because money is something you don't talk about in a household.
Correct.
What you earn, what you don't earn, it's taboo. We don't talk about.
Right.
What is healthy and what's not healthy money-wise, it's taboo. And we gotta change that mindset, whether it is a little or whether it is a lot.
Yeah.
And number one, no financial institution will be able to provide a minor with access to any adult banking account. And the conversation then that we should have is who is the next of kin.
Right.
We don't have those conversations at home. Now it becomes a emotional thing.
Correct.
Because is it my big sister, but my big sister's chacharach. No, I don't want the big sister. Maybe I must make
I
it the
don't
small.
trust.
Yeah, I must
Yes.
make it the small. But then the big sister's going to get upset, and then I'm going to upset Gogo, and Gogo's going to have a heart attack. And
That is correct.
so there is that emotion that we must take out of this equation and say, okay, I am nominating so and so to be my children's next of kin.
Right.
And when that bank opens that account for you to save, you must be able to say, next of kin is X. And then also there is an addendum that is dealt with when people are sick. But it's too late when you've got cancer or a long terminal disease or whatever it may be. we should be forward thinking, because a car accident can happen tomorrow.
Yeah.
So at some point there must be a file or folder, and this is where a financial advisor comes in. This is where you have a manager that looks after your affairs. Even if you do a funeral policy, there is a will that says the next of kin to my kids is so and so. This is the person that's going to handle, and we're going to talk about wills. We're going to talk about structuring that. I'll give you some time now, Albert. So we're going to have another segment just on that and on management of your family's wealth. So at some point you've got to think about that. Even before you made the money, you've got to think about that. Even before you've saved a huge amount, is that accessibility, and you've got to think about it. So I'm asking that we have a conversation on social media, and I agree, let's get links and streams and conversations and feeds happening around how do we appoint a guardian, a next of kin, somebody that can handle our affairs if anything happens. The other aspect that I want to be real about is couples. And yes, first part of your, and I mean this could mean anything for everybody, but the world today is not as straightforward as it was years ago. Ndate would be a migrant worker, and he'll have a wife in Gauteng and a wife here in Bloemfontein. And then this first wife will know about this other wife, but she won't say anything. And she'll deal with it, right? Today, silently. And she will keep the marriage going for the sake of the community and family. And then later it became the lady next door, or whatever it may be. Let's face it, this is what happens in our communities. Islam allows a Muslim man to have 4 wives, as an example. But today's women are not tolerant of that environment. We do not tolerate that level of mixed relationships. And similarly with men, today's men are also not tolerant. So you find that you're in this love, happy, hunky-dory utopia situation, and you don't think about the day when the popo hits the fan. You don't think about that. Right. And you marry in community of property, your banking details has access to your banks, and the husband and wife can access savings accounts, check accounts, or whatever it may be.
Right.
I've had circumstances when I was a banker where somebody had gone insane due to a cheating relationship, and this woman cleaned out this poor man's entire account, as an example. Or people are going through a divorce, but the divorce is not registered, and it's not registered on the system, but the wife is able to deal with everything, and by the time the divorce is through, he's got nothing, she's got nothing, whichever way. I would want to caution households, and if you really love that person, and you really feel that this is the person for life, and you're going to grow a family and a house, and you're going to have 40-year anniversaries until death do you part, if you really love that person, you will talk about in the event of. And in that event of, in death, this is how it must happen. In split, separation, this is how it must happen. In divorce, this is how it must happen. But there are also solutions like trust accounts, where it is a living environment for your children as beneficiaries, and the legacy that you are building, your assets are in there, which individuals, whether you are together or not, you don't have direct access, but you still have control, but it benefits your children and the family and the legacy. And as black people, we need to understand that that is how the wealthy became wealthier. Despite their challenges and despite the breakups in families, communities, business partners, they were able to preserve their wealth through various systems. And I want us to talk about trusts and wills and this type of structures at a later stage, because it is important. Single parenthood is not something that's taboo. And separations or divorces are not taboo, and single moms are not taboo, single dads are not taboo. Savings and your lifestyle reflects all of that, and we've got to take that into the equation as well. And which solutions are we bringing for whichever individual at whatever point in their lifestyle or in their life cycle? And that's important that we need to address as well.
Fantastic. I want us to run to a break and come back and wrap this conversation up quickly. I know Albert had wanted to say something. I did not forget. Don't
Thank
worry.
you.
I did not forget. We're going to come back to him. After the break, we're wrapping up this conversation about saving.
My name is Winnie Kamolani from WinPro Financial Services. I'm a financial advisor from an independent financial services provider. I cannot wait to take part in this program initiated by the MEC of Treasury in the Free State, and I am committing myself to really indulge with financial literacy when it comes to women and children, especially in the retirement planning space. There's a lot of discussions that are to be had in that space, so I cannot wait to interact with everyone on this platform. Looking forward to everything. Thank you.
Our conversation today is flowing so nicely, MEC. I think we are happy with some of the content that's coming out, particularly dedicated at savings. Now, before we went to the break, you were speaking about the hard truths that we do not want to address as families, as community members, as children, some of the things that happen on our daily lives that we do not want to attend to. Albert, you wanted to tie in something that MEC said. She said, I must not forget you, so I am coming back to you. Let's talk to that.
I think two quick ones. I think the first one is, and at least partially address the issue of leaving children behind once the parents have died, is the issue of a will, which we will hopefully get to in future episodes. But I think want to mention that within the will, you can appoint the guardian. And that makes a lot of difference in terms of how the executors, and perhaps there could be a trust that is created within the will. So that is one way of finding a solution in that particular scenario when the children are minors. I think that was the one thing that I just wanted to touch on. The other one, practical one for parents, is to how do you teach your children practically how to work with money? So if you're fortunate enough to be able to give your child an allowance in the month, one of the principles you want to teach them is to save before you spend. So you teach them and say, well, show me how much you're going to put away first. Right? And that goes into your piggy bank, or you open a bank account for them. But obviously, us as parents, you have to set the example, right? But it's a good principle. And then you'd say, and now you need to teach them to work with their money wisely. So if you as a parent, you need to have discipline, and sometimes it's difficult, but the children need to know. If you've got 100 Rand for the month, and you're saving 10 Rand, you've got 90 Rand for the rest of the month. And you need to manage that. Mm-hmm. And I found that personally, it's been quite helpful.
Mm-hmm. Beautiful. We're going to, I think, when we started the show, you spoke about the power to purchase. Yeah. And now you're bringing in management of funds. And I think it also ties into some of the conversations that we want to have moving forward. But MEC, I want us to close and wrap up this show. Mm-hmm. But we're aware that we're not even at the crux of what we wanted to discuss today. Mm-hmm. And I want us to speak about the commitment about the next show. Yeah. And what we want to attend to in the next show.
All right.
Let's do that.
So the idea that just came out of that
Yes.
is that I want us to bring 100 Rand
Uh-huh.
and split that into 10 Rand notes.
Right.
And then I want us to have a couple of envelopes. And then we could utilize that as an example of how you would save in a household.
Right.
And how you would save as a teenager and how you'd save in tuck.
Right.
And then you say, okay, savings for 100 Rand is my weekly tuck money. X amount goes to savings, the other goes to food, the other goes to whatever it is that I want to do. If it's a movie with your friends and or whatever it may be. And we want to practically see that happen. So that camera will zoom onto those little envelopes.
Yes.
And we show how it will work. I'd like to see that. And that makes it practical for everybody
Correct.
to understand and for young people to understand. But I'd also like us to go into a little bit more detail on perhaps not only on product choices but more on the education towards understanding levels of savings.
Right.
And where are we in the savings basket to move to the next level? And then invest for interest income or invest for a yield over a certain period. And where would we like to, and that will spill over eventually to our investment segment. But I believe that the savings segment is not sufficient.
Not done.
Not done. Because sometimes we save and there's a young child who is naughty and has a drug problem at home, and he knows to go into that cookie jar, there's X amount, and he breaks open that cookie jar. Or children will fight over piggy banks. What happens then? And in that event, how do we manage that and secure that and deal with the risk part of savings as well? And the inflation issue is critical, because right now a bottle of milk or a loaf of bread is not going to cost us the same. And how do we then understand that reserves will deplete, and how do we increase our savings to build those reserves, and how do we budget so that the balance of what it is that we're trying to do in a household remains the way we would think it would remain, given the economy, the inflationary issues, the challenges that we're having in households. So there's still a lot to talk about, and I think next week we're going to close that down.
Right.
We will also take some questions from the audience and off our websites and whatever it is that we need to do. And we will incorporate that into our discussion, but know that we're going to be then moving over into the investment side after we deal with and close the savings side of things. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, MEC. We have come to the end of the show, but we are not done. And I think we have admitted that the amount of information that we have received today is quite incredible for us to just leave it open. So we're coming back next week to discuss savings further. Please send us your questions on different platforms so that we are able to respond to them. If you're not sure about the documentation, if you're not sure about the legitimacy of your savings, if you're not, send those questions so that we are able to address them. Coupled with what we would be talking about next week is savings in SMMEs and private businesses, because that, MEC, I think it's a very, very important aspect of saving as well. How do small businesses save for themselves? My name is Lorato Khomolemo. We have come to the end of the show, and I thank you for allowing us to help you save your rands and cents. Goodbye.
Roxas. What'd you do with Kyrie? She's part of the darkness now. She doesn't need the light.